Tanks, magic and adorable anime dogs can only mean one thing: a new Valkyria Chronicles game. The Valkyria Chronicles series has had a tricky time of it since the first game, with none of the sequels or the spin-off making the same impact as the beautiful debut of Valkyria Chronicles a whole decade ago. Valkyria Chronicles 4 aims to fix that problem by being pretty much as close to the original game as possible, just with different characters and a different concurrent storyline. First, a history lesson. In an alternate version of Europe where the Allied forces march under the sickening name of the Edinburgh Army, the military empire of not Russia invades and starts a big war, and neutral tiny wee Gallia is stuck in the centre of it all. The first game focused on Gallia's part in the war, but Valkyria Chronicles 4 changes the focus to the Allied front, making inroads into Imperial territory. After a few years now of not really knowing how to continue the story of Valkyria Chronicles, it made sense for Sega just to go back to the war that started it all. This is a war unlike any other though. A decade on, no other game has really emulated the Valkyria Chronicles formula. It's a mashup of turn-based strategy, real-time / arcadey running and gunning, and JRPG levelling and progression. It sounds like a mess, but it works extremely well. Each round in the battlefield gives you a handful of turns to move units, use them to attack or do another action, and then capture bases along the way.
I did it!
Between each turn, you can scan the battlefield from above and make decisions. But when you're down on the ground, the battlefield comes alive as crossfire and artillery spring into action as soon as your unit is spotted. There are a few basic unit types. Scouts are weak but can travel the furthest. Shock troopers pack a punch and can dodge crossfire quickly, but they can't run very far. Lancers trudge along at a snail's pace but can destroy tanks. And snipers sit back and dispense death from a distance.
Too easy.
The one new addition to the roster is the Grenadier, or Grenadier, or Grenadier. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Anyway, they can't travel very far but can fire devastating shells from miles, destroying infantry and artillery in their wake. They're extremely useful and the key to success in a lot of missions, but they're not as overpowered as others have made them out to be. Between battles, you spend most of your time in a lovely storybook, watching cutscenes of Squad E and getting to know the cast better. The squad all tend to fit into anime stereotype moulds, but they're a likeable bunch. Give them a bit of time though. Unlike Valkyria Chronicles 1, this game throws you into the story at a point where everyone already knows each other, with a lot of flashbacks used to bring you up to speed. The first game had a slow start, story-wise, but at least you were always in the same level as Welkin when it came to meeting and getting to know folk. Here, it feels like you're playing catch-up. Trips to army headquarters let you use experience and cold hard cash to develop equipment, train your squad and learn new orders. You can also tailor your squad, choosing recruits who you think will either be useful or you just like the look of them. They all have their quirks too, so no two troops are completely alike. Don't get too wedded to the idea of having a completely unique experience though. Valkyria Chronicles 4 carries over some of the first game's biggest flaws, and they all contribute to a strategy game that doesn't really have much strategy in it. The missions in the game are each memorable and full of do or die moments, but there's a strong feeling of the game's guiding hand throughout. You're never really asked to figure out the best approach by yourself, and a lot of the missions boil down to doing the big thing that the game wants you to do. There's a mission near the start of the game that takes place in a flashback. You're told before you go into it that it's the toughest training mission the army has to offer, a Kobayashi Maru level task of unbeatable odds. But then you get into it and all you have to do is exactly what the game tells you. I thought the game would take the training wheels off when, about a third of the way through, I was on a frantic and chaotic battlefield full of tanks and pillboxes. Yes, I thought, finally, time for some real tactical creativity to get my squad out of this hellscape. But no, and that's when the enemy AI decides it can't be arsed taking me on properly and just half-arses its way through the battle. It doesn't help that, as an RPG at heart, Valkyria Chronicles is extremely unbalanced in the player's favour. Here's the thing nobody likes to talk about with JRPGs. They're fundamentally broken at the core. They're games where the player always has numbers on their side, and Valkyria Chronicles is no exception. It's a game where a small team of less than a dozen can take on a whole army, because you've got the highest defence, the best weapons and the strongest tanks every time. And even when the enemy could easily wipe out your entire platoon in one round, they never do. If that all sounds disappointing, bear in mind the first game was exactly the same, and I count it as one of my favourite games in the PS3. It's a unique and special game that's dear to my heart because there was nothing else like it, and because it told this grand, sweeping, romantic wartime story through an anime lens. I can honestly say that Valkyria Chronicles 4 is just as good as the first game, but I don't think I'll ever love it like I do the first. And that's a shame, because if you've never played a Valkyria Chronicles game, this fourth entry might be the one that you fall in love with. It even fixes a couple of the problems the first game had. Tanks no longer take up 2 turns per use, and you can make squad members follow captains around so you don't need to waste turns moving them individually. I'd kill for that in the first game. If you look past the lack of real strategy to just embrace the JRPG trappings, Valkyria Chronicles 4 is a game of thrilling battles, exciting set pieces and wonderful characters. For that reason, it's still something very special.